Hello, it's Miss Hill here. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the layout of our sentence builders in MFL at Colonel Frank Seeley and explaining to you how these can be used to help with the MFL homework. All students in years 7, 8 and 9 will have 2 copies of their sentence builder, one which they keep in school in their exercise book which they use in lesson time, and one which they have to work on at home. The example sentence builder that I'm going to go through in this video is a year 7 Spanish one, but the layout of the sentence builders is the same for year 7, 8 and 9 and for both languages, French and Spanish. I'd also like to remind you that for students who would like support with language learning, we offer a lunchtime drop-in session on a Wednesday where students may bring their homework to work on or come and ask their teacher for some advice about how to learn the vocabulary. So on the first pages of the sentence builder, you'll find the homework vocabulary lists. There'll be no more than 30 items per list, and each list is designed to be homework for 3 weeks. So this means that if you have a child who particularly struggles with retaining information, it is possible that you could break the list down further and focus on a maximum of 10 items per week. However, for most students, I would advise that trying to revise the whole list every single week is a better option, because this allows students to revisit the items on the list multiple times, which is better for long-term retention. We would expect students to spend a minimum of 20 minutes on the learning homework each week, which means that over the sequence of homework tasks over the 3 weeks, they will have spent at least an hour learning each homework item on the list. And I would advise that in 1 week, 2 sessions of 10 minutes is more likely to be effective than 1 session of 20 minutes. Just because the more frequent you look at the vocabulary, the more likely it is you'll retain it in the long term. You can see here that there's space on the sentence builder for students to write the English next to each item on the list. So in the first week that a homework is issued, the first thing I would ask students to do in some of that 20 minutes is to complete the English translations and write them on their copy. I would strongly suggest that they use the look, cover, write, check method to check the meaning in the sentence builder booklet, to cover it over, to write it, and then to check that they've got it right. This is a well-known method for supporting knowledge acquisition and retention of vocabulary. Following this, in the subsequent weeks, in the subsequent time, they should then test themselves on this vocabulary from each list. So there are various ways that a student might like to do this. They can fold their sentence builder or cover over with a bit of paper one side of the list, and they could test themselves from Spanish or French into English or vice versa. They could enlist somebody at home to read out the English from the English list that they've written, and they can see if they can say out loud the Spanish or French. And we have some students at Colonel Frank Seeley who love making flashcards, which are great for vocab retention, vocab practice, but it is really important that we do spend the time testing the flashcards rather than just making them, because it's the testing that helps support the long-term vocabulary acquisition. So on the next page, you'll see that there is also a section that shows the key sounds from each module. You'll find this in all of the sentence builders as well. So each sound has the spelling that makes that sound and also an associated word that contains that sound. So again, this is useful for supporting your son and daughter with their pronunciation. You don't need to be an expert. It's more just about the practice, and it would help if you periodically maybe ask them to read the words out loud and think about the different sounds. In the year 7 sentence builders, we do have it in the first one, the alphabet. You won't find this in the subsequent sentence builders, But what this page does show is that in some of the sentence builders there are QR codes which can be scanned. So that again will enable your son and daughter to access sound recordings to support them with their pronunciation. So in this case, if you scan the QR code with a phone, you will hear me reading out the alphabet, and the student can repeat after me. So next you find the sentence builders themselves. These are the basis of what we teach in lessons. So again, if students are doing their homework regularly, it just means that they feel more confident in lessons. They know the vocabulary that is coming up, and they know the meaning. So this is where you'll find the English for the lists of vocabulary that have been set for homework. Each homework is tested on a 3-week cycle. So after the first week of learning, students are expected just to be able to recognise individual items of vocabulary from the list, and we try and do some from French and Spanish into English and some from English into French and Spanish. In the second week, it is all from the target language, so all from French or Spanish into English, and this is about understanding those items in a reading context. So for years 8 and 9, we use that reading context to incorporate items of vocabulary from previous topics and previous year groups as well, to encourage revisiting the vocabulary and to encourage the retention in the long term. And then in the third week of the homework, students will have spent an hour, or they should have spent an hour on that vocabulary by this point. And we expect them to be able to write from memory some short sentences, again using that same vocabulary. It's really important to us that we build up to this independent writing, because all of the vocabulary that we test in years 7, 8 and 9 comes from the new GCSE language syllabuses, and therefore it really helps to build the confidence of students as they go into Key Stage 4. We find that by establishing these good learning habits in Key Stage 3, not only do students have the knowledge that they need, but also the learning habits that they need to be able to succeed at GCSE. Each sentence builder also has optional extra tasks. So for our most ambitious learners, there are suggestions of how they can go a little bit beyond the curriculum. And there are also culture corner boxes which build up the knowledge of Spain or France or other French and Spanish speaking parts of the world, which again is cultural knowledge that they might find helpful when they do a GCSE. On some of our sentence builders, you'll see there is an elephant image like the one here, and you'll notice that the English translations have not been included on that particular page. This indicates that the language has been taught before, and students are really encouraged to try and recall that knowledge rather than immediately going back to look it up. Usually there will be a little speech bubble that tells them where they've learnt it before if they do need to go back to a previous sentence builder and look it up. And again, this is all about just developing that long-term retention of vocabulary. Finally, at the end of our sentence builders, this is a new addition this year, we have started to put verb tables which share some of the most common irregular verbs or share the patterns of regular verbs in the tenses that the students will be using in that unit. So starting off with present tense in year 7 and then building up to include past and future tenses in year 8 and year 9. These aren't part of our homework tasks, but we do find that our most ambitious learners do use them for reference in lessons, and actually again thinking about building up good habits ready for GCSE, some of our ambitious learners are likely to find them really, really useful for self-study. So I hope that you found that quick whistle to stop tour of the sentence builders useful. We really value your support in supporting the students with their self-study of languages. If I can be of any further assistance in terms of how to use the sentence builders, please don't hesitate to contact me at school.